Hi, I'm Polly Gitau. It has been a pleasure being part of the Smarter Online Safety podcast with Jocelyn, where we're talking about travel tips, especially if you're traveling, like understanding what are some of the harms that you could be exposed to in terms of, let's say, securing your devices. And then the other thing is about physical security, like not allowing burglars or, let's say, malicious people to know that you're not physically at home and then coming back later to find like things went wrong. And also we've discussed on more ways of how you can enable yourself or have the right, let's say, skills or even the right knowledge to empower others such that when they're traveling, they know what to do and what not to do to stay online, to stay safe online, and with a key theme of safety first.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Smarter Online Safety Podcast. I am your host, Jocelyn King, and I am so excited today to bring this wonderful guest to you. Her name is Polly Gitau, and she is a renowned cybersecurity leader. She has a singular mission to help shape a safer, more trustworthy digital world. And over the past decade, she's worked across both public and private sectors, partnering with governments, financial institutions, healthcare providers, and technology vendors to really strengthen compliance, to make cybersecurity standards better everywhere, and foster a culture where every stakeholder shares responsibility for digital protection. Today, Polly serves as the Vice President of the Germany chapter for the Global Council for Responsible AI. That's an organization committed to ensuring that artificial intelligence is developed, deployed, and governed in a manner that is ethical, responsible, secure, and aligned with the global public interest. Her career journey has taken her through high impact roles in organizations such as SAP, KPMG, and Siemens. And she has tackled automotive cybersecurity, developing the cybersecurity management system, gap assessment tools, and aligning OEMs or original equipment manufacturers and suppliers with ISO standards. She is also aligned and contributing to Kenya's central bank cybersecurity guidelines. Kenya is her home country. She resides in Germany, and she is the first person on our podcast who speaks four languages. And outside of her day-to-day work, Polly gives back even more through her leadership and mentorship, contributing to the Cloud Security Alliance, AI Control Matrix Working Group, and serving on the Automotive Security Research Group's Vulnerability Management Committee. And she mentors multiple cohorts of Cyber Girls fellows and by the CyberSafe Foundation. So her global impact has been recognized with top honors and awards, including Top Cybersecurity Woman of the World 2024, the WISF Power 100 2024, and a finalist for Cybersecurity Woman of the Year awards. So Polly is a phenom, and because she is a woman of the world, she's here to help us understand when we're traveling the world how to be safe, as well as telling us more about her journey and how she got into cybersecurity. Welcome, Polly.
Thank you, Jocelyn. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, you've got such a phenomenal background, and I love also that you're helping get encourage girls to get into cybersecurity. As a woman in cybersecurity, women make up just around 20% of the cybersecurity workforce, and the unique capabilities and stuff that women have brought in, especially as they're coming in from other disciplines, has really helped cybersecurity get more secure and more productive and more efficient. And that's not just my personal opinion, that's the assessment of the professionals. So thank you for encouraging our young girls to go into this as a STEM education path and the career path. With that, could you tell us how you got into cybersecurity and tell us a little bit? Because, growing up in Kenya, that's not a That's not one of the major feeder, you know, countries for cybersecurity. So you have a unique story. Tell us.
I'd say maybe now it's kind of picking up because, yeah, I think I have unique threat landscape. But going back to my journey, I'd say it majorly started in the university where we had this female professor. Like anytime you mention about cybersecurity, people would be like, yeah, you need to go talk to her, which was quite, I'd say, interesting. And at the moment, the path I was to take was software engineering
Hmm.
because like I'd done a bit of dev ops before joining
I'm sorry,
like
what kind of dev in software engineering?
so I think I created that. Not I think I actually created an app for Microsoft. You remember when you had like the Microsoft phones before they disbanded
Wow,
them?
creating a
Yeah,
Microsoft app in
yeah, yeah,
school. I love it. That's great.
yeah. So working with like Visual Studio and C Sharp, and then when I got to university,
Oh,
I
and for
saw
people listening who
yeah,
aren't software related, C sharp is
language.
a programming language. So that's no mean feat to do what you did. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, so when I got to university, I think either my first or let's say my third or second semester, I saw that they were offering an IBM course. I know for IBM, it's a big buzzword. Like if you hear IBM is doing something, you'll be like, okay, what are they doing? What can
Right.
I do? Or like just get curious.
Right.
So I sort of,
Especially when you're in first year university and you're looking at
yeah,
job opportunities, taking an IBM
yeah,
course will open doors, obviously. That's great.
yeah,
Or-
that's what I was thinking at that time. So
Uh-huh.
I saw that they're doing like an certification for one of the, I would say, applications for web security. So like how do you scan and make sure like your web doesn't have loopholes or vulnerabilities that would make like your app be insecure such that an attacker can come and compromise, whether it's stealing information. And in a banking scenario, maybe go take your money without your knowledge. So, like, how
So
do you
taking
make
your
sure this?
money
Yeah,
because it has a backdoor, at least one,
yeah,
and several open loops.
yeah.
So you were trying to figure out how to prevent that.
Yeah, so I was learning like how to do it and then using the app because what the app does, it shows you like you have these weaknesses and vulnerabilities, and then from there, like what are some things that you can do to fix them? So it was more of like doing both. So maybe you might have heard the term ethical hacking, especially for the listeners, where
Yeah.
you're
Ethical
someone
hacking comes up a lot with the white hat
yeah,
for the white hats.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, true. So it's more of like trying to act as a bad guy just to learn like what are some of the steps or measures that they can do. And then from there, seeing like how can you protect that even going an extra mile if you have like solutions that monitor such activity, like how do you detect such? So it's a whole thing.
Perfect. So
So
basically, your
I
first year of college, you became an ethical hacker.
see more or less. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Then after that, like it was quite interesting because I'm seeing like in the movies, yes, we know about hacking. We just see them open a command prompt. I think even people were joking about this. You just open the command prompt, write some commands. But
So a
then
command prompt, and then you're just typing something in, and
yeah,
that's what the hacker in the hoodie is doing at a computer, right?
yeah. So now stepping over and then seeing like you can actually do this in real life and that like things or tools or courses that you can do to help you like upskill in this. I'd say it was quite interesting. Then afterwards, because we had the option of either doing like software engineering as a concentration or the cybersecurity one, which was more focused on cybercrime and forensics, I decided to pursue that. And then in the course,
So
like
wait, so you had the choice. You could either take the path for software engineering or for
yeah,
cybersecurity and cybercrime and
yeah,
forensics. Yeah,
yeah,
and you went that way.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I don't blame you. It's definitely sounds more exciting and stuff. So,
yeah,
but I think, but from what I'm hearing you say, you wanted to get into that because you like the idea of fighting cybercrime,
yeah, I'd
not
say
just cybersecurity, but the idea of fighting cybercrime.
yeah, I'd say
That's
yes.
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
A big
And
part of
some
your bio shows wanting to help protect people and make places safer and people safer. So was that already something that mattered to you at university?
I'd say yes. Well, I'd not seen like the big picture, like how it looks in an organization setting, but
Mhm.
from what I'd seen, like the bare minimum, seeing like organizations either they have some weak links and at times either it's lack of knowledge, which I came to like appreciate, especially in my when I started my career at KPMG after university, where I'd find like you needed to bring in all these different people, whether it's procurement, legal, then you have HR, like telling them like what are the things you need to do when it comes to cybersecurity, whether it's hiring, do make sure you do background checks. You don't want to hire someone with all these skills, then later
Right.
down the line, they have access to your
Well,
systems.
you bring up a good point
Yeah.
because HR people are trying to find people with the right credentials, but there are so many instances of big corporations having hacks that are actually insider threats, which is the term we use
Mhm.
in cybersecurity, for
Yeah.
people who have come in, and that's also not just full-time employees, but the contractors who come in. You can have a what looks like a legitimate IT contractor come in, or they don't even have to be in IT. They could be in marketing or
Yeah.
admin, but they could come in and they could actually be a hacker so they're a wolf in sheep's clothing coming into the company and then infiltrating the system when they're in. And a lot of big corporations are taken down by that.
Yeah. I think I've had stories where like just to touch on that. Um, There's a podcast I listen to, it's called Darknet Diaries, and they look at the most crazy or unimaginable cyber attacks that have ever happened. And
Right,
then you listen to people talking, saying like they had to do this, like the either tailgating where someone opens the door and then since they don't work there and they don't have a badge, they're like, yeah, I have all these things that I'm carrying. At times you see that in the movies, especially if
right,
they're trying to commit theft in that specific company, but these are things that happen in real life where you're not sure about the person who is going in, especially if you have like a big organization with 100,000 employees, you can know
right,
everyone. And then someone is at the door, like following you. You're not sure that they're part of the company. And then they have all these books. The human nature in us comes in, and then you're like, yeah, I have to help them.
right,
Then
right.
later you come to realize, oh, it was a bad guy. But how could you
Yeah.
have? Yeah, it's
Well, that was
crazy.
a big deal. When I worked at Intel, we had that. We would get because I was part of the communications
Mhm.
and safety group, we would see the photos that were being shared by law enforcement to all the companies in the area of these people who were tailgaters who were coming in and
Mhm.
what they would walk through, they would follow a badged employee who
Yeah,
the badge opens the doors and they follow them through.
yeah,
And you're taught as an Intel employee and other employees not to let, at any company, HP or any of them, not to
yeah.
let anybody follow you. But it's very hard for human beings to have somebody come through and
Mhm.
be rude and say, no, you got to badge yourself through. And
Yeah.
so they would
No,
have
true.
pictures from other companies where people they were on the security cameras tailgating through the badged employee, and they'd come
Yeah,
in and if you were lucky, all they did was steal people's wallets and purses, but some of them got in and actually took, could take drives, hard drives and data
yeah,
and confidential information out of the company.
yeah,
So yeah, that's something
yeah.
that's a physical security problem
I
that,
know, yeah,
that affects online, cybersecurity as well. So,
yeah. I think when it comes to cyber, you can do away with physical, and at times, like I
mhm.
think people forget that like cybersecurity, it's not just in the internet. All these building facets.
Right.
Going back to my journey, so university, I decided to pursue the course, the one for forensic and information technology and cybercrime. Well, mainly I learning about forensic accounting and then what to do in the event of a cyber incident or cyber attack, like how
Mhm.
do you collect, let's say, forensic evidence, the same way you have cops doing the normal forensic, let's say, is it CSI? Yeah, something
Yeah,
like that.
CSI, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
So
CSI.
instead of fingerprints on a door, you're looking for
Yeah.
digital fingerprints.
Yeah. And then like how do you make sure like that can also be presented in a court of law because at times some of these cyber attacks they do have legal implications whether someone committed fraud and you have to present this to the court, so that the person can be prosecuted or not.
Right.
Then after that, I started my internship at a company called Seriano. They usually do like these Africa cybersecurity reports, and as part of my, let's say, university life, my lecturer was, let's say, she gave us like different chances or opportunities to participate. And one of the things I got to do was to contribute to, I think, two or three cybersecurity reports. We are being given IPs to scan and then see what issues they have, and also trying to find any information that can support those reports. I think they're still doing them to the while back. And also, I got to join the company because they're doing managed security services operations, where if, let's say, as an organization, you don't have the capacity to do your own, let's say, security operations center monitoring because it's quite resource intensive. That
Right.
means you need like 24 hours, and some companies can't afford that. So you can either hire a third party organization to do that. So I was doing that for 3 months, working with majorly financial institutions, and then I was trying to see, are there any malicious things happening in case there are any reporting the same, escalating, and then doing the whole shift change.
What
So
would a
that was,
malicious, what's an example for our listeners of a malicious thing that would be happening that you'd be looking for?
so I think in a financial setting, maybe you'd be looking at transactions.
Hmm.
At times you do have, yes, the fraud monitoring, AML, anti-money laundering
Hmm.
solutions.
Hmm.
And like in the Kenyan context, you have things like mobile money, where you move your money to, like, your phone number is like your, I would say, your bank account in quotes, because I can send you money from my own mobile number to your mobile number. And then
Hmm.
you have like, I would say the solution has expanded where you can send money, let's say, from your bank account to your phone number. And even you have like things like savings, loans, etc.
Right.
So it's like, how do you make sure like the transactions being done, whether it's sending money from the bank to the phone number that's actually accurate and it's a phone number registered to that person, or if someone is withdrawing money from the ATM, how sure are you like it's the correct person and then they're not withdrawing like at odd hours, like trying to find those, let's say, unusual patterns and then flagging them
You're
on.
looking for unusual patterns, like this person is never at the bank at 1 a.m., but now they are.
Yeah,
Kind of, right?
yeah. Yeah. So I'd say more of malicious and suspicious. And then the others, it's more of like communicating with the, let's say, blacklisted IPs or known malware IP, because you'll find most of the solution providers or the tools you use for monitoring, they have like a whole database, which is they have to keep updating because,
Right.
as you know, attackers keep changing the tactics. So if
So every
something
time
is
there's
kind
a
of,
new malicious website that is known or a phone number or something, it goes into
yeah,
the database so that
yeah,
companies and governments and stuff can block them so that employees who are being targeted for phishing won't click on them. Like when people work inside companies and they click on something and it shows that it's blocked, that's you're saying
yeah,
that's where that comes from.
yeah, I would say, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
well,
That's great. Mhm.
at times there are features like proxies. It's more like you have a man in the middle. So if you're
Yeah.
sending communications to the internet, you find like they check, is the rest of the website, let's say, allowed? Because either you don't want employees to be going, let's say, on YouTube. For some companies, like they don't find it as useful for working hours and they decide to block it. Or maybe you don't want people to be using company resources to access, let's say, adult sites, which they should not be doing, especially during working hours. You block
Right.
that. Yep.
Right. So you're blocking pornography sites and
Yeah.
other sites
Yep.
from corporates. Yeah, that makes total sense. Now
Yep.
you work in Germany and you're from Kenya and you work in Germany and you travel. And as a
Mhm.
cybersecurity professional traveling, I know you're seeing, a fair amount of all the crime that's happening against travelers. And since we're coming up, this is travel season. People are traveling always traveling for business, but we're coming up into one of the biggest, holiday vacation times. We're in the midst of that right now. So a lot of people have no idea what some of the dangers are that are out there that they should be aware of. And you've got this wonderful on the ground experience and of course incredible cybersecurity knowledge. So tell us one of the things that some of our listeners may have heard of and others have never heard of before is this whole issue with USB ports not being safe. So you're in an airport or you're at a cafe or someplace and your phone is dying because you're taking all these wonderful vacation photos and videos and your phone's dying, so you want to charge it, so you plug it into the USB plug they have to recharge. And sometimes that's fine, and sometimes it's not. Most people listening don't know why it's not. Could you kind of explain what's going on there?
Yep, sure. So I think just going back to the basics, usually when you have the USB cable, you find either it has the option of transferring information. So we can see it has a data component. And then you have like some USB cables which do not like allow that data transfer. The sole purpose is just charging.
Hmm.
But those ones I would say I don't have such a big issue with. But then it comes the critical ones would be the ones with the data component. I think for most, when you're buying let's say your phone, I think nowadays because of sustainability, there's a decline in being given the charger. But for the earlier days, or if companies are still providing the USB, you find it's usually like data enabled so that like I can also plug in the USB cable into my laptop and I can transfer files instead of using like wireless like Bluetooth or maybe uploading them on let's say Google Drive etc.
So it's kind
So
of a two-in-one. It's a data
yeah,
cable and a power charging cable. And the average person is probably not going to know the difference by looking at cables. They're all
yeah,
the
true,
same.
yeah. So usually the data cable is refined as a way of like trying to improve customer experience, whether it's in hotels or even, as you mentioned, cafes, even in malls and also at the airports. You have like a USB port where you can just go plug in and charge your phone as a, let's say, waiting for your plane or even waiting for someone to come up and catch up. So usually what happens is there's a term called juice boxing or
Juice
USB
boxing.
port, yeah, or USB porting,
Mhm,
where a malicious person or an attacker downloads malware to that specific USB port outlet. For
mhm.
you, you might be thinking it's just going to connect to USB, but behind that, there's this whole malware just waiting for you to plug in your phone. And especially you find like your phone is unlocked, you find this data being transferred. Because this is something it's happening in the background. You can't tell like what's going on.
So the
So
malware that's behind that
yeah,
innocent looking port that you're plugging
yeah,
into is actually drawing data out of your phone into it,
yeah.
then use it to be able to sell or use against you in some way, somehow monetize your information, credit cards, personal information, all of that. So you think you're charging your phone, and you're
Yeah,
actually giving them the keys to your life basically, and to your certainly to your finances. So and you won't know, are there signs that people should look for?
I would say if your phone starts misbehaving, because even for that data transfer to happen, the malware needs to be installed on your phone. And then from there, like someone is now connecting to, let's say, a command and control server where they can communicate between you and your phone.
Right.
So with this, like usually having an antivirus could help maybe try and detect some of these malware.
Hmm.
But then I would even see like if you look at the normal laptop or corporate infrastructure, I've had like solutions which are quite sophisticated to detect and block such. I would say for the phone industry to be more of a catch up. And as I was reading today, like
Right.
Android and Apple, they had come up with the measures to try and deter malicious malware being downloaded on your phone, especially if you connect to the USB port for the newer models. But then also someone came up with that research. I think it was a university from Graz where they said you can also bypass. I've forgotten the actual term, which
They
Android
found a
and
bypass.
yeah, they've already found a bypass. So it goes back like I think the safest solution would be using like the traditional charger. Just carry your charger, go plug it in
So if
there.
you're going to have your USB cord, you want to have that traditional wall plug to put into
Yeah,
it, so
that's
that
true.
because that will mean that it's power only and not data
Yeah,
transfer. Okay.
that's true. Yeah.
So, and then the other way to know is just to make sure that you've got a power only cable,
Yeah,
not a data cable. And if you're not certain, then you definitely, if you're not certain what you have, then you definitely want to be using this plug, right? So
yeah,
good thing to do for travelers is to make sure they have their wall plug with them. And
yeah,
especially if they're traveling to a different country, they've got to have the adapter, but always plug
that's
your
true.
USB into that rather than into a wall plug. I know one of the things I see a lot because I travel quite a bit is
Hmm.
all the USB plugs that are available now in the lamps and
Yeah,
and the little clock radio boxes and all of that. And I'm very cautious of those because I've seen so many incidents of things like that having malware put into them and then, taking innocent travelers. And they target hotels and things like that because look at the turnover. You could have 7 different
yeah,
worth of data in a single week, and that's a gold mine for hackers, and it can go
that's true.
undetected for so long.
Yeah, that's the sad thing because like unless you start seeing like transactions or someone got access to your bank account,
Hmm.
it would be hard to detect. Well,
Right,
corporates, it's easier, but then as an individual, at times you're too focused with other things to keep
right,
noticing like something bad is happening in the background.
right. Well, and especially because let's say you are in a business and you're traveling with your corporate laptop, that's gonna be much safer because of all the protections that are put in there. But for your own personal phone, and as you said, that's the thing, cyber criminals are always looking for that one way. They only need one way in. They only need to be right
That's true.
once. So
Yeah.
as soon as Apple and all the Android manufacturers put together all these protections, the people
Yeah.
most looking for the workaround are the cyber criminals. And once they find it, they then
Mm.
they sell their solution on the dark web to other cyber criminals, and then those protections are gone for everyday travelers. So even if you think you're safe, you don't
There's
know.
no,
It just got
yeah.
invented yesterday and downloaded.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
you want to be careful. So
Yeah.
that's really good. Okay, so wall plugs keep you safer. Um,
Yeah.
a cord that is power only and
Mm.
not a data transfer cord. You could use a
That's
USB plug.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I think you mentioned about trying to figure out whether it's a data cable or power only. I think the simplest solution is connecting your phone to the laptop and you have the option of either file transfer, charge, then like it's a data cable. And then if it just charges and doesn't give you any prompts,
right,
most definitely or the highest probability it's a power only cable.
right.
Yeah,
So I know that kind of connection is really good. It does take some extra steps for everybody listening,
that's true.
to be safer
Yeah.
because people are also like, well, wait, I'm also not supposed to be using public Wi-Fi.
Mm.
So I'm trying to use like my phone connection and all this. So it is an extra step or it's an extra cable to carry.
Yeah.
But the thought of you not having to go through an incident and being compromised and reclaiming your identity or your money or filing, a report in order to get your funds returned if they get access to your credit cards or bank accounts, all that is,
Yeah.
it's which is more work. And having been through a cybersecurity attack, I can tell you it's less work to prepare. That there's that
Yeah.
old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It certainly is true
Sure.
in
Yeah.
cyber safety. There was another thing that you mentioned when we were talking beforehand about travel, and that is when
Yeah.
everybody's traveling and they're posting, they land in their wonderful destination and they check in online on their social and they start
Mm.
posting photos and all that, and of course they're relaxing, enjoying their life, and they want to let their friends and family know what they're doing. But what's the potential danger of that?
I think just an example I would give the most recent. Well, I wouldn't say like he actually intended to post, but as we know, Brad Pitt is quite famous and he was attending a premiere of the latest movie, the Formula One movie in London. So even though like being a celebrity at his caliber, he can't hide from cameras or from the public knowing where he was going.
Right.
And what
Wherever
happened
he is,
is,
people are going to know his whereabouts.
yes, that's the sad bit. Yeah. So unfortunately, like this information was used by burglars who like they were able to get into his house and break into it. And just because they knew someone was not there, since the information was already there. I think there have been a couple of cases where you find like a footballer, I think Olivier, and a couple of celebrities have been targets of such burglaries because people know that they're not around and usually like they might not think of leaving someone maybe to house sit or something. But even if you have someone house sitting, you don't have like that, I would say, specific guarantee like everything is going to go well. Other
Right.
than that, I would say
So,
like
let's just double click on that for a second. So yeah, because even if you're checking in, you're thinking, well, it's okay because I've got a house sitter, somebody's at home. But some criminals are definitely not the smartest tools in the shed either. So they're
yeah.
not thinking about that. They're thinking your house is empty. And
Mhm.
yeah, I remember reading about one where somebody broke in and there was a house sitter there. The house sitter happened to be um, a friend of the family was staying there who was retired law enforcement. So it did not go well for the criminal,
Yeah,
but
I can
it did
imagine.
go
Yeah.
well for the guy who was on vacation and retired from law enforcement that he had to catch a bad guy
So
and turn him
yeah,
in. And all of that happened because people had posted where they were on vacation. So,
yeah,
you can't tell people not to post, on vacation or
yes,
not check in, but
yeah.
you have to be aware of the dangers. So what kind of recommendations do you have? I think you were talking a little bit about delaying some of your posts.
Yeah, I would say I don't know for content creators since that's like their livelihood, they need to post. And also seeing like some content creators like they do film content for like a whole month and then they're going to post it afterwards. I
Mhm.
think delaying whether it's with a day or even with a week won't hurt you because someone won't know like you went for vacation and also like someone won't be targeting and luckily like you mentioned the person had a house sitter and some of us may not have that let's say luxury of having a house sitter.
Mhm.
Another thing is like having like a private account but also if you don't want the public to know like where you are in
Right.
like some of these privacy measures can also be if let's say the company is hacked or you have other let's say your friend's account is hacked it kind of exposes like where you are so it's not a guarantee that having that specific privacy measure it's going to help you so I'd
So you're
say
yeah, so that's a really important point. So your
yeah,
tip for everybody is that they should be aware of just making sure their social media settings are private when they're
yep,
posting their vacation photos, but also be aware that if any of their friends have been hacked, which unfortunately on social media accounts
no
happen
offense, yeah,
all the time, that you
yeah,
have to realize that one of your friends is actually a criminal who's now seeing that you're gone and that could mean that they think that there's an opportunity to get into your house.
yeah. Or even the sad bit would be at times we don't know we have so many followers like
Mhm.
we even don't know who most of them are and maybe one of them is just a burglar just seeking to know when you have
Mhm.
disappeared or something. So even doing like social media audits once in a while to see do I know this person? Do I not know this person? And
Right.
then as I mentioned, delays in posting. I do know for some roles you can't or some especially for content creators you can do that. Especially if let's say you're going out. You can also wait like you move to another location or you go back home and then you can just post it like to have that sense of let's say security.
Right. I know a lot of cybersecurity folks don't even have social media accounts for all these reasons, but those who do tend
Yeah.
to, they go on vacation and when they come back, they say, I just finished a great, 2-week vacation in, Tahiti or Hawaii or wherever. And
Yeah,
then they post some pictures and the other good rule of thumb is always post everything as though you're posting it to the public, the entire internet, because
yeah.
invariably anything you post can easily be accessed
Like,
by
yeah,
anybody in the world, depending on how it's leaked, how it's stolen. So just if
yeah,
you can keep your settings for private, but you want to be
that's true.
aware that don't never put anything up there that you'd be upset if it was posted publicly because that happens every day to a lot of people. So you just then you won't be in a compromised situation.
Yeah. And she did mention a good point where you have like you don't have cybersecurity professionals not having social media, but then you find they have kids, they have social media, and then they kind of want to impress their, let's
That's
say,
yeah,
their friends, etc., or show like they're doing something. So also translating or sharing the same with your kids, telling them like, yeah, get off your phones or post after your vacation. That
right.
could help. Yeah.
Or let them know that what
Mhm.
Polly Gitau was telling them about that why you don't want to post. You want to be safe because you
That's true. Yeah.
anybody if anybody, get into the house. So you can teach them how to do their own social media because you as a parent or as a couple
Mhm.
or whatever you are, could be okay, we're not going to post anything, but your kids are on their phone seemingly on games, but
Yeah.
they're telling strangers,
Where they
that
are.
you're where
Yeah.
you are and that you're away from
Mhm.
home. And so it's a great opportunity to educate your kids when you're taking a vacation or going away for any period of time, any kind of
Yep.
travel to help educate our children, first of all, so they can protect
Mhm.
themselves, learn
Yep.
good self-protection skills, and also be part of protecting the entire family because there's nothing worse on vacation than to come home and find out that your house has been robbed, and that's happened to a lot of people. Um,
So yeah.
and just because you have a house sitter or pet sitter coming, the bad guys don't know that. So you don't want to be paranoid, but you want to be informed and aware and make the smart decisions for you so that you're at the level of safety that you want to be so you can relax and enjoy your life. Right?
Yep. True. Think safety first. You.
Safety first. There you go. That is great advice from Polly Gitau. That is wonderful. Polly, thank you so much for this great information, for explaining the whole juice boxing and USB porting and giving some really good tips of what people can do to prevent it and also how to protect yourself while you're on vacation. So that's awesome. Any final tips or anything you'd like to add for our listeners?
Yep. I think one last one is link connectivity. Most of the times you find like because of roaming restrictions, you don't want to use like pay quite huge lump sums. I think I've been a victim of that.
You
Where you
don't
find
want to use what? I just want to be curious. Repeat that.
like paying like big amounts of money because I was roaming and I did not know like the costs implications.
Right.
So
So if you're
yeah,
using cellular data
yeah,
to stay safe, but you're on
yeah,
roaming, it can be expensive. So
yeah. So people usually opt for, let's say, Wi-Fi's, and most of them, the public Wi-Fi is fast, they're unsecure, and then if it becomes an open Wi-Fi where it doesn't have a password to log in, it's even worse. So you find like someone is trying to, let's say, stay updated. Either they need location details or maybe they're trying to pay and the card did not go through. They need to check their bank account. And the only option they have is using like a public Wi-Fi and maybe it's unsecure.
mhm.
So for this, I would say like anytime you need to connect to a public Wi-Fi, whether it's at the hotel, restaurant, especially for let's say secured ones, secured with codes because they have a
Secured
password.
with a password, but it's
Yeah,
still not
yeah,
secure. Yeah.
that's true. Ask kindly confirm like the name because I've had cases where people create an evil twin. You have the same name of the let's say Wi-Fi, maybe they changed one or two characters and then you find like maybe it even has the same password. So always check the name. That's one, just to make sure you have the correct Wi-Fi. And in cases where you're not able to, let's say the only option you have is unsecure Wi-Fi where you don't need a password. Some of them they do ask you to, let's say, use your email address, and for this, like, don't use the email address, use it, let's say, for your bank accounts or for your official things. Create like a dummy email just to get that internet access and avoid, let's say, accessing sites, whether it's, let's say, your banking information, your, let's say, confidential information, whether
Right.
it's your thing to do with your. personal sensitive data, whether it's your social security number, your insurance, medical records, to just avoid that. And
So
with
avoid
uh,
any kind of credit card or financial or personal information transfer if you're on
yeah,
any kind of Wi-Fi away from home.
that's true. And
Yeah,
even for corporates, avoid using unsecured Wi-Fi.
that's true.
Then
Mhm.
the other thing you can have is getting a VPN, a virtual private network. So usually don't go for the free ones because in the digital world, nothing is free. You'd rather opt for a paid one since the free ones, they don't do like such a good job in masking like your activities or even encrypting or they make your data being transferred to the internet in a way that cannot be understood. So usually opting for the, let's say the paid versions, it's a better way, but if you can avoid accessing your personal information.
Okay, that is great advice. You brought up a
Yeah,
good point about the fake Wi-Fi, the evil twins, as they're called in cybersecurity. And
yeah.
there's a great demo of that I watched sitting next to somebody where we were at a Hilton event and they
Okay.
set up an evil twin real time, and it said Hilton public. It said Hilton, but it was H-I, and the L was actually a capital I
Yeah.
and it looked like an L. So it was H-I-1, it's H-I-L, sorry, Hiiton. And
Mm-hmm.
but it looked like Hilton because it wasn't, it was a sans serif font. So it didn't have, the I
Yeah.
didn't have the top and the bottom on it. So it looked like an L. And think of this, you're a traveler, you're busy, you're tired, you're checking in, you might be
Yeah.
jet lagged, you might be just
Yeah.
tired from a long day, you might be hungry, you're not thinking your best, and you look at it and you click on it. There's two,
Yeah.
there's the legitimate one and there's this one, but they make this one, very
Much easier.
easier
Yeah.
to get to. So you get in and you're on, and then you think, okay, good, I'm on this, this Hilton private
Hotel
Wi-Fi or
Wi-Fi.
whatever the hotel. I'm not picking on Hilton because it happens everywhere,
Yep.
but you think you're on some kind of semi-private, Wi-Fi,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not
Yeah.
at all. You're actually on a bad guy's Wi-Fi device.
Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Everything you give them, they are going to figure out how to monetize in some way if they possibly can. So
Yeah.
those are great
And
tips.
yeah, think the other option, think nowadays with the power of eSIM, you find like you can just buy one eSIM. Even today I noticed like my bank account and Uber is offering eSIM options.
So
And
eSIM for your
yeah,
phone.
yep.
Hmm.
And regardless of the country, like you only need one eSIM and then it gives you a whole let's say number of countries that you can choose from. So the only thing you need to do is like buy the bundles that you need for that specific time. So we need like let's say about 30 GB when you're during your vacation, you can just buy that when you're let's say still waiting to leave your country. And then from there, when you get there, you already have internet connection.
Okay,
And
so you buy your
then
eSIM and then you're using your private
yeah,
phone as and you're using that as your internet connection, and then you never have to worry about using public Wi-Fi or even hotel Wi-Fi or anything.
yeah. And you can also use it as a hotspot for your laptop if you need to work or do something on your laptop.
Right, right. You write the emails, and then in order to send them, you will connect to your phone on a
Yep.
hotspot using this eSIM, and then that way
Yeah.
you're staying through a cellular provider's secured connection between you and them, and then you're going to not risk any of the Wi-Fi problems we've just been talking about.
Yeah. I'd say so. Yeah.
That is great advice. Wow. So much great advice for people traveling. And, and this is not just even traveling away on vacation or business. This is even just going out for the day and stopping at a Starbucks or going to or meeting somebody at a restaurant. There's
Yep.
public Wi-Fi everywhere and USB charging ports everywhere. So,
That's
wow.
true.
Well, I think we've gotten five great tips here from you, Polly. Right? So USB charging, be aware of that and have the right kind of cable or have a plug. Don't let them do a juice boxing hack on you.
Yep. That's the thing. Yeah.
Don't use public Wi-Fi, and you want to have a strong VPN if you are going to use it, or don't put any personal credit card information,
Okay.
financial
Yeah.
information, social security numbers, or anything while you're on that. When you're traveling, get an eSIM for the country you're going to or wherever you're going to be, so you don't have to worry about the data roaming charges.
Yeah.
And um, and then you want to make sure that you are being careful about posting and how you're posting and making sure that everybody in your family and your party that's going with you is equally aware because somebody else could make it known that you're away from home even if you're not doing it. And you're not only protecting yourself, you're protecting everybody who's on vacation with you. So, wow, such great tips and so timely and from a real expert. Thank you so much for joining us today and from your time zone, Polly Gitau. Thank you for all you do in the cybersecurity industry too. And for people who want to know a little bit more about helping girls get into cyber and girls who code and cyber girls and stuff, any advice on what they could do?
Yep. I would say I do have a couple of favorite sites. So one of them I'd say is Try Hack Me. They do give like this
Try Hack
generic
Me, and
code.
we'll put that in the notes below. So tryhackme.com.
Yeah.
Is it
So
.com
it has
or
like
.org? I haven't been on it in a couple of days. What is
I
it?
think it's .com. Yeah, but I'll check that.
Tryhackme.com. Mhm.
Yeah, so it has like a part on the different cybersecurity parts because cybersecurity is not just hacking, there's also governance, risk and compliance where you need to, let's say, comply with different regulation. And then there's a NIST framework, which it kind of gives you like the different roles in cybersecurity and what kind of skills that you need to gain. And from this, you can, let's say, search for the specific skills or specific path that you want to go into. Then you find companies or organizations such as ISC, Two Squared, and let's say ethical what's the name? EC Council. They do offer like entry level, let's say scholarships for their entry level certifications. They do have like scholarships which you can apply, maybe pay for the application fee or the let's say more of the application fee. And
That's
then from
perfect.
this you can learn like the basics, like trained, especially if you're transitioning from let's say a tech or even a non-tech field and you want to move into cybersecurity.
That's great.
Then
And this
definitely,
and by the way, this is for all kids and all young people, and even
yeah,
people who are looking to transition. Try Hack Me is great for people of any age who are thinking that they're wanting to get out of their current career and look at how to get into cybersecurity, which has over 500,000 openings in the US alone. So people are worried, globally and especially in the US about jobs going away. There are more jobs than we can fill here, and you don't have to be a hacker or coder to do them. They're analyst
that's
jobs and administrative jobs. So anybody can get in. So, if you have young people, you want to encourage them into a solid career that's going to be around forever because cybercrime's not going away.
kind
Um,
of
Great field, and anybody you know who's in any kind of career transition, definitely look into this. So, and my team just confirmed it is tryhackme.com, and we'll
yep,
put the links to the sites that you mentioned under this video. So that is
yep.
so great. Thank you for helping make the
Mhm.
world safer, for making our listeners safer, and for helping get more brilliant people into cybersecurity to protect us from the ever-growing cybercrime. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time today, Polly.
Thank you to Jocelyn, and it was a pleasure being part of your podcast, especially educating the everyday users because I'd say it's a neglected audience. Besides what we learn in the corporate world, after that, most of the people don't know like how do you protect yourselves, whether it's the kids, etc. And I would say it's such a great job that you're doing this, like translating those terms, not having the usual technical or yeah, I would say mainly technical terms where you have to talk to internally in the organization, but not talking to the everyday person to understand like what could go wrong in
That's
the
great.
system.
That's so true. Thank you so much. That is our mission here. And thank you for helping us fulfill this episode in doing that. And thank you, everybody, for listening. If you know anybody who's traveling or you're traveling, please share this with them to give them Polly's great tips and advice so they can stay safe. And until next time, you stay safe out there.